Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Science Streams, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful night. And tonight we are here with Dr. Annareli Morales, and I'm so happy to have you here. And uh, just tell us a little bit about yourself to kind of get things started off.
let's see. So I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I am from a small, what is even small? It's a small town on the border of Chicago proper, called Cicero. Um, and yeah, I've gone to a lot of schools. I've have many degrees from many schools, so I've been all over the place. But yeah, I went to the University of Illinois to get my bachelor's degree in science. And I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, and so I decided to double major in geology and atmospheric science because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Let's just do everything. It worked out. I was able to do both, so I really enjoyed atmospheric science and learning about clouds and the particles inside of the clouds and how they form. And so I just kept learning because I never felt like I had learned anything. I felt like I wasn't ready to go into the real world yet. So I just kept going to school basically. Um, and then I finished all the school that I could do with this particular major of atmospheric science. And so now I have my PhD and I'm almost done with a postdoctoral fellowship. And now I will finally go into the real world. I'm kind of scared, but I'm super excited.
You said that you couldn't leave school. I'm like, yeah, those people are called postdocs, aren't they?
Yes, I did one of those because I
It's the
still
real
have.
world. That's what I
Yeah,
tell my students. They're like, oh, they're seniors. They're like, oh, I don't know. I'm graduating, go to the real world. I'm like, just keep going to college. Be
keep
a
going.
postdoc. Some people
Yeah, I
never
went to
leave.
college, went to grad school. In grad school, it was nice because they basically paid you to go to school. Well, okay, it depends on the major, but for my specific major, the graduate schools I went to, they paid me, or I was given a stipend basically.
Right.
So I was able to live and not have to have a second job or a third job, and do my research and get my courses completed.
Yeah. And now you are in Boulder.
Correct.
And I just want to say that my heart goes out to the entire Boulder community. And I'm sure a lot of people out there, would agree that these tragedies are terrible. As a public school teacher, we just had a lockdown drill today in school
Mhm.
for practice. Uh, not the kind of thing you want to do. I don't know if you had any words to say in regards to
Um,
that.
yeah, I appreciate you mentioning it. Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty shocking. It was a pretty horrible day on Monday. It was, I guess, the term it hits close to home. Yeah, I live here, and so it's home to me. But that particular grocery store within Boulder is sitting at the bottom of the mesa, and above the mesa is where we have the National Center for Atmospheric Research, the main building. And so in regular times, we have a lot of atmospheric scientists and oceanographers and all sorts of scientists, just interacting through that area. And that's the go-to spot. That's the closest place to go get a snack. We have a shuttle that picks us up to take us to the mesa because there's no bus to get up to the hill. And then across, to the north, we have the NOAA building. I should know what NOAA stands for, but um, and so there's a bunch of other scientists there too. So it's a hub for the South Boulder community, but also for us as scientists, and as people interacting and living in that area. So it was really scary, to to scary and weird to have to think, oh, I hope I don't know anyone um,
Hmm.
that was killed. And so yeah, it was really really tough. And I think the city is pretty united right now. I think we're
Yeah, and it's a wonderful place. I visited Boulder probably 5 years ago. My wife did a summer program at UC Boulder, like a teacher program. I believe it was a Gilder Lehrman, um,
mm,
and it was on like national parks, um, and how they formed, and what
mhm,
the history is behind them. And my sister lives in Englewood, Sheridan area.
mhm.
She's actually the mayor of Sheridan. So
Oh wow.
I've been to Colorado a couple times. I've only been to Boulder once, and we had fun. We walked around the entire town, city. It's a city of Boulder, I guess. But
It's a city.
it's a city, but it especially certain parts of it feel like like a smaller town. It's kind of
Yeah,
it has
which
that
is
really cool feel to it.
it's scary because like it's a big city, but it really has that small town vibe. So people know each other.
Hmm.
So that's why it could be a very good chance that you would have known somebody. Um, but yeah, it's been rough. But I think it's yeah, we just have to keep going, I guess.
Yeah, and I think maybe you can tell me if this is if I remember correctly, there was like a celestial like solar system to scale on the campus where you could go from like the sun and then like you follow this trail out and it was to scale as far as how far away everything was. I know.
I have
I remember
no
that.
idea.
I just remember that about ever because we had like our kids were there and we're like, oh, we're gonna go. We got to a certain point. We're like, oh wait, no, we're not going all the way to these outer planets. That's too far away.
Tired.
Maybe
It's
these
probably
inner planets. That's
all.
good.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't spend too much time on the CU campus. It's kind of far and there's no parking. So, I'm not gonna go over there. Um, but I know they have like other cool labs there. Um, and I think they have a telescope because they used to have like planetarium nights or something, and you can come and look at the telescope that they had.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're kind of settling into a career now.
Hmm.
Um, and how arduous of a process was your PhD?
Um, very. So all together, all of the grad school, because okay, once you have your bachelor's degree, so you go to 4 or 5
Hmm.
year college or something or whatever, and then you go to graduate school. It took maybe 7 years total because I got a master's degree first, and then I decided to do PhD, and so that was 5 years. So it took a long time, and it was really hard on like mental health. Um, just this continuous feeling of I don't know enough and I'm never going to know everything. And am I really an expert? I can't be the expert here because I don't know what I'm doing. So this guilt or self doubt, but also I guess guilt because I feel like I neglected a lot of other things so I could focus.
Hmm.
So when I finished my PhD that summer, I took about 2 months off so I could go visit all my friends that I had ignored. Not really ignored, but like I
Were
hadn't
they still
seen.
your friends?
Yes, they were.
Okay,
I was
there you go.
very excited that they let me in their house. They let me stay with them for a weekend or two.
Did you make them call you doctor?
Oh no, some of them did.
Just for
Um,
fun.
yeah, I did say like, "Oh, I want people to call me doctor," but then I felt like, no, it feels kind of weird. Um, it still feels weird, but yeah, um, some of
Funny.
them still do. Um, so yeah, it was really hard in that sense of basically you're well, this isn't the experience for everyone, obviously, but for me,
Hmm.
I felt like my life was kind of um, uber focused on this thing, and I wasn't able to do anything else. Um, and so it felt like now that I'm done, I can finally start to just be a person and kind of live.
Yeah.
So
Now, did you get to that point though, where like you were so focused, and I've heard this from other people, you're so focused on the research in what you're doing and trying to learn that you forget other things that you used to know. Like it's like, all right, I'm gonna go make some cookies, and you're like, I don't know what to do, right? You like,
yeah,
I can't remember where I parked my car anymore, but I can explain to you the systems of cloud formation.
yes. I think that probably happened. Like the peak of my knowledge I felt was right before I had my qualifying exam. So for your PhD, you have to take this big exam to qualify,
Hmm.
to continue the program basically. And so I put so much information in my head that I was like, "Whoa!" I'm like one with the atmosphere, and I under everything links. And then I took the exam, and I passed it. And I was like, "Woo!" And then I did everything just fell out. And then I had to like relearn things and just like, well, how do I drive? I don't know, like little things of just I was so exhausted just studying for
Hmm.
months for this exam. Um, and so now I have basically retained what is absolutely necessary. Um, and all the other things are somewhere in there. I can figure it out.
Yep. And the other thing you mentioned is I've talked to a lot of PhD students doing this chat, um, and is that sense of the imposter syndrome. And this, I think, goes for a lot of careers, especially when you're
Mhm.
early in your career. I felt it as a teacher. You know, you're kind of like, I feel like I'm just making this stuff up. I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone seems to have it together except me. And I think part of that growth, you know, and especially now that you've come out of this, you kind of realize, you know, hopefully that it's like most people don't have it together. You know, it's part of this accepting of everyone's got, you know, has gone through this process.
Yeah. And I think it's especially um, important, I guess, to not acknowledge that in science because we're
Hmm.
always asking new questions and there's always new questions and the questions are really open-ended, like we don't know if there's an answer, and if we
Right.
have that answer, is that the right answer? How do we know? There's no one with like a solution sheet. So you're just gonna have to go in there and explore, and hope that it kind of makes sense. But yeah, this imposter syndrome is pretty intense. Um, and I still feel it. I'm starting to I'm seeing the light out of it. But it still does feel like that. Um,
Hmm.
and I feel like it might be a combination of loads of things, of your environment, of like some people's imposter syndrome may come because they're in an environment where they don't feel like they belong or they're not
Hmm.
even supposed to be here. Um, and so everything they do feels like, oh, it's not enough, or I'm not worthy, or they're going to figure out that I actually don't belong here. I'm going to keep pretending that I do. And so this fear, I guess, and it gets really can get really bad.
And I think
Yeah.
that's where having a good advisor, you know, can really make a big difference. Having that support structure, uh, and and this is, you know, as a teacher, I try to do this. You want to challenge a student,
Mhm.
um, at the same time as lifting them up, which is very challenge. It's actually tough to do,
Oh yeah,
as a, like a mentor or a teacher, because different people will react different ways to, you know, criticism and feedback that you try to provide. So it's so whereas one person might thrive under an advisor, someone else might not, just because that's not how they work.
exactly. And so it takes a lot of work to be a mentor, to adapt and be flexible to each student's or mentees needs. And I've been fortunate enough to have amazing, wonderful mentors um, throughout my undergrad and grad school, and then now as a postdoc, and even in my new job that I'll start in September. The advisor I'll have is amazing, and I respect her and look up to her, and I hope I can be like her when I grow up. And so I'm super excited. But yeah, it's been super tough trying to balance the like what you need to try these things and fail
Hmm.
and learn from them, but also not give me too many obstacles that it feels so impossible that I just give up. Um, and there were many times where I almost gave up. Um, and it was that open communication with my mentors and my advisors that helped me get through it. Um, because they kind of help me see a little bit clearly when I start spiraling.
Hmm. Yep. And I think it's a lot more acceptable now, to admit if you have like a mental health problem, and
Mhm.
you're trying to cope with something. And I think I know myself as a teacher, even I'm more, I look for that more in students, and I try to um, help a student work through that and not be
Mhm.
dismissive of it. Whereas I think in the past, a lot of uh, people, in power were very dismissive, and you got to realize that when people can get through that, they're going to, maybe be stronger for it, but they'll definitely be better for it,
Mhm.
as well. Uh, so, because you want people to be able to succeed, not just, fail out. I always hated that, you know, that thing where it's like, half of this class will be gone by October,
Yeah,
and you're like,
that was
are
my
you
undergrad
that
experience.
bad of a teacher?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? Like, we're good, we should all pass, right? What's up? Yeah, these weed out classes where, and that's what I experienced when I started college. That was a combination of my unfortunately my high school experience didn't prepare me for
Mhm.
college level physics. And so I was not ready. Um, but also, the classes were meant to weed people out because not everyone can be an engineer and not everyone can be a scientist. So, we're going to have to eliminate some people. And so, I think my first semester, I failed my physics one class and I was failing, or maybe I ended up with a C or something in my calculus
Mm.
2 class. Um, but it was bad. And my undergrad advisor um, likes to tell this story that I don't necessarily remember this. I probably repressed it, but that I came to his office crying that I had failed my physics exam, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's the end of the world. What am I gonna do?" And he was just like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. You just take it again and like just keep going. This is just one class. And I don't know the details of what he said, but I remember feeling a lot better about it after. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do this. And then the second scary part was having to call my mom and tell her, oh, by the way, I failed a class. But that doesn't mean anything. It's totally fine. Don't freak out. Um, she definitely freaked out, and I had to tell her I could just take it again.
Yep. And you know what, it happens, and I think uh, students need to hear that it's okay to fail. I mean, it's not okay. All right, you should pass, right? That's the goal. But
Well, the
there
goal
is
is to
getting past it, right? The goal is to learn, right, and to get better. I mean, I will
learn.
admittedly, when I took my physics classes as an undergrad, I failed the first test for
Mhm.
whatever reason. The first test each semester I failed.
Mhm.
Everyone after that I got an A.
Mhm.
But for whatever, it's like I didn't know how to. I had to relearn how to study, is what
Gotcha.
it was. And of course, I go to the professor. I'm like, hey, I aced everything. All right, I failed the first. Can you drop the first score? Absolutely not. You earned that grade. Whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, whatever. It's your class, your choice. But I'm like,
Mhm.
fine. And and I tell my students that I'm like, hey, you know what? You know, I failed tests too. It happens,
Mhm.
but we got to learn from it. Oh, here we
Yep.
go. Question for you: how do you study rain and snow formation?
There's many ways. So, one way could be by observing it, and so taking observations. So, to do that, like you can't just like walk into a cloud, like 'cause you can't fly. But we can get in an airplane, put a bunch of sensors on the plane that can tell us how big the drops are, if there's any aerosols or chemicals or um, loads of information about the cloud. And fly into them and then gather the information, then analyze it later. So that's one way. I think that's would be called in situ. So it's Latin for maybe like on location or something. And then there's lab. So there's something called a cloud chamber. And so you can there's a few handful of places um, around the world that have this cloud chamber where you can basically create a cloud. I don't know all the details, don't quote me, but you can simulate a cloud in like a real one, and then analyze it, and test things, and maybe even see like how quickly does a raindrop fall. How does it break up? So maybe you have a instrument that produces a raindrop a certain size. Maybe you want to start a specific kind of size, and it'll fall. Maybe you have like a high speed camera to watch it fall. Maybe you try to interact it with another one. So there's a lot of things we can do there. You can also grow ice crystals to study how they grow. So there's those components. And then I study them using computers. So I use a weather model. So it's basically a bunch of math equations that were derived from past observations and lab work, and just theoretical, yes, physics and math um, equations. And we put them in the computer. We simplify them because we don't have enough computing power to do everything. So we simplify it, and then we kind of create a virtual atmosphere, you could say, and you then just let it run, and I can then maybe put a mountain in there, make the air go over the mountain, form a cloud, and then perturb, I guess is what we call it. But it's you can tweak turn knobs, I guess, or settings to see what happens in the cloud, and understand a little bit more about it.
Mhm.
So, and I think you can also see them from space, and you can also use radar. So that's remote sensing, that you can like look into the clouds to see what's happening.
So it kind of depends what you're looking for.
Correct.
Right.
The it depends on the scale. So spatial scale, how big are we talking? Do you want to know how deep the cloud is, or do you want to know exactly like how does the water vapor condense and then get bigger and bigger, and you make a raindrop and it falls out. And then when it falls out, what happens? So it definitely depends on what you're looking for, the scale of spatial scale, but also temporal scale, and then also vertical scale.
Right. And I think something a lot of people are familiar with, going from my own experience, is, the plane that goes into the hurricane, right, during
Mhm,
hurricane season to get all that data that they then send back to, the weather stations on the continent to kind of get an idea of
mhm.
what that's doing. So you're saying that you have planes, they do similar, just, just to
Yeah,
study that way.
we have very specific projects to study very specific things. We have very specific questions, and then we can rent, I guess, an airplane for that time period of the field campaign or the field project, and then we take measurements. But yeah, the hurricane hunters, they have their own plane, that they can, because it's big and sturdy, they can fly into the hurricanes, take measurements, and then provide those measurements to the National Hurricane Center to feed into their models to make sure that they have all the right input basically into their weather models to get the best output of the forecast. And they also use, I think, that same plane to fly over the west coast
Hmm.
in the winter time to look at the atmospheric rivers there. So it's the same kind of thought of like you're launching weather balloons into the sky and trying to collect as much information about the event before, during, um, I think it's before and during, so that you can then understand it later.
Right. And I think it's interesting. Volcano Doc, who's in chat and moderating right now, she's doing like modeling for volcanoes. So
Hmm.
and how, magma flows. So of course some similarities, different, fields of earth science for sure,
Yeah,
but that mathematical modeling is huge, to be able to make predictions about what's going to happen. Um,
yeah,
and something I think a lot of students get turned off by right away is when you say something like mathematical modeling, and they think right away, math, oh no, I have to do math. Now, did you have that experience, or like how did you overcome it if you did? Or was it just, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do the math?
yeah. So I was one of the people that loved math. I when I was a child, my favorite subjects were math and science. I also really liked art and music.
Hmm.
So it's just this creativeness. I did not like English. I didn't like to read. I didn't like to write. But that's most of my job is reading and writing. I have to read hundreds. I don't even know how many I've read of papers. So I have one right here of scientific published papers to read
Yep.
and understand what they've communicated. And then when I have my science completed, I do the same thing. I write one up and I send it out to communicate my science. So I have to do a lot of writing and reading, but it's worth it because I like the science part, or the actual discovery, I guess. But yeah, so I really like the math and science. So I was just kind of I was down to keep going. But I in in grad school, in undergrad, yes, I had to take calculus 1, 2, 3, and then vector, or no, vector calculus, no, that's two, differential equations. And then some people had to take linear algebra, and I didn't. And then I then took statistics, and I took some other statistics courses in graduate school. And then there was just a ton of deriving of equations.
Mhm.
But if you don't like that part, you don't have to go into that part of our field. So I do like deriving equations; it's really fun. But my work isn't, I guess, uh, in my opinion, theoretical work is the work where you're like really looking into equations and trying to make sense of them and maybe create new ones to explain things. Um, I basically use tools. So the weather model is a tool that we've used or that we've developed to help us um, do experiments basically. And so just like if you're in a chemistry lab, you don't have to reinvent every molecule of your like set of or solutions or something, or you don't have to invent the beaker or a Bunsen burner. Those are tools, they're already
Mhm.
made, and you just don't know how to use them and know what the limitations of using them are and when you can or when you can't use them. So weather models have math, and there's a lot of math in there, but it's all coded up, so that you can basically tell the computer what to do with the math. Um, but sometimes I have to go into, I guess, the guts of the model and maybe tweak some stuff to test some of my hypotheses. But it's not too scary because I have people around me that can help because I can ask for help. I can ask some of the people that work directly with the model to help me do some of these things. So it's not a vacuum. I'm not completely alone and like you have to figure this out. I can ask people for help. So some of my colleagues do a lot of equation work and driving, but they enjoy it. And some people don't do that. They like to just look at the numbers. Like, okay, cool, you did the math, great. You did the coding, great. I want to just analyze the data. So there's all sorts of parts to it. Um,
Right.
but yeah.
Cool. Hey, Rex, welcome into the chat. If you have any weather questions, particularly about rain and snow and their
Mhm.
formation, ask away. Dr. Annareli Morales is the expert, or so I've been told, uh,
Ah, I like that word.
on
Um,
on that. Guess what? You are, because you got that doctor in front of your name.
yeah,
So you are the resident expert on it. And one of the things I do know that professionals do that are in science, if they don't know something, they'll admit it.
yeah.
And that's how you know when someone's full of crap, basically, is when they try to make something up that doesn't really fit. A lot of scientists will be like, I don't know that. That's not quite in my field.
Yeah, exactly.
But we can look it up and find out. Um,
Yeah, that's what I've been taught during my PhD is how to critically think, how to pose scientific questions, and then how to do research. So if I don't know something, how do I find out?
mhm,
Um, how to find the answer? And if I don't know it, then yeah, I have to say I don't know, because I need to be honest because it affects my credibility if I'm pretending that I know more than I do.
right. You got a couple questions.
Ooh,
Um, Volcano Doc asks, what are the different types of precipitation and how do they form? And Rex asks, okay, here's one. How are we able to predict if it's going to rain or snow?
yikes. Okay. So, what are the types of precipitation? So we have there's many. I will name like the main ones, I guess, because there could be some that I don't even know about. But anyway, so we have in the liquid phase rain. So it's just liquid water falling from the sky. You have snow until that's frozen. So the little crystals. It could be small crystals. It could be um, aggregates. So you have many crystals put together, and they fall in these big clumps of snow. Um, those two, and then you have hail. So that's another frozen one. That one develops very differently. Um, and we can go into that if you want, but I'm just gonna name them. And so that's just like a ball of ice, basically. And then you have grapple, which is a smaller kind of. I'm being very simple here, or I'm simplifying everything, or generalizing, I guess. Um, you have a grapple, which is a smaller kind of hail. Um, it's really
Hmm,
it's like 5 millimeters, so the size of a pencil eraser, or the width. That's how big grapple is, and they kind of look like
huh.
little cones.
I don't know if I've
Um,
ever heard that term, bro.
yeah, it's they kind of look like snow
Hmm,
cones, the tiny little cones.
okay.
And then so that's getting into the more mixed phase stuff. So you have liquid and ice. So then there's sleet, um, which is, let me remember. Um, Sleet is snow that then melts, but then refreezes, I believe. Um,
Okay.
I think, ooh, I'm getting myself all messed up. But there's sleet and then there's freezing rain, which is liquid until it hits the surface because the surface is below freezing and it immediately will freeze. And so then everything's coated in ice.
Mhm.
So I think that's most of them.
And for that second question, is it rain or snow that has to happen up in the atmosphere in the cloud? Correct.
Yeah.
Because if it freezes when it gets closer to the surface, it'll only be freezing rain, or it'll just turn into like a kind of like a sleet or something.
Mhm.
All right. So that happens in the cloud.
Yeah, so it depends on the cloud. So if you have like a what we call a shallow cloud that it doesn't go very deep
Hmm.
into the sky, it that cloud might all be liquid. So none of it is beyond the height of where it's below freezing temperatures. And so if it's all liquid, then you're not gonna be able to get snow because if that's all liquid, then it's probably all warm below that too.
Hmm.
Um, there could be situations where maybe there's a very, very cold layer right near the surface. And so then you have rain falling and it hits the cold surface and it can freeze. So there's caveats. But anyway, but then if you have a different kind of cloud that maybe is a lot deeper into the vertical, and so then there's part of that cloud that is in below freezing temperatures, so you're creating ice, but then there's part of it that's below freezing or above freezing temperature, so there's water. Then there's this in between layer where there's both, and so then it's basically just what is happening below the cloud. um, is it cold? Maybe then it'll snow or hail and then that'll persist. Or if it's really warm, maybe the snow can melt. There's all these sorts of combinations of things. But I guess the question was, how do we forecast if it's going to be rain or snow? Um, I think you need to know the type of cloud, um, the what we call vertical velocity. So it's how fast the air is moving upward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if it's really strong, then that means it could um, sustain the growth of hail, because hail's so heavy and like all the clouds are just suspended water, and so it falls out in as precipitation when it can't be supported by the updrafts or the air going up from the surface. So if you want hail to form these big things, big ice balls, then you need the air to be really strong going up. So that's stuff that we need to know, and then temperature. um, and then, particularly in the mountains, it's a big deal to know if it's going to be rain or snow, because
Mm-hmm.
let's say you have your layer of where it's temperature that's 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's freezing. But then you have a mountain in between. So then there's some part of that mountain that's going to be in the frozen zone, I guess, and some that's going to be in the non-frozen zone. So where is this level? Where's the height? We call that the snow level, just the transition between rain and snow. That is super tricky, and we're still trying to figure out how we can better predict where the height of that will be, because then that will impact, obviously, the type of precipitation, and then that can impact where it falls. So it's really complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know whenever they do snow predictions, and I hate to talk about this because it's still March, but
We have
we
snow
could
here
get
all the
we could
time.
get
It's
2 feet next week.
in
But
Colorado.
yep. Um, and they always say like higher elevations will get this much more than the valleys,
Correct.
and that's why you're saying it's important to be able to make that prediction better. I think some of the people that can really predict that are people that live there. You kind of almost can tell. You're like, well, if they're gonna get this, we always get
Hmm.
5 inches more
Hmm.
than that location. So that there's kind of that cultural knowledge, I guess, of
Yeah.
that location based.
Situated, yeah, situated knowledge is
Yep.
what the literature calls it.
Okay, the situated knowledge. Yep. So I know we do that here. We're not in the higher elevation. We're in the valley. So we're pretty predictable what we get usually. But those higher elevations, good
Hmm.
luck. You're going to get some snow most of the year. Um, so that there's still a lot to be learned then about rain and snow. You're telling us that not everything is known yet.
Correct. I have a job because we don't know everything yet. And so that's one of the things that I'm planning to look into when I start my job. Um, as a research scientist, I want to understand better how we can predict, but also just understand these changes in that snow level height so that we can better understand if it's going to rain or snow over mountains.
The ski lift operators want to know. Right?
Yeah, it's super important, not just for, I guess I'm thinking water resources and flooding, but also recreation and other industries, most definitely. Everything is connected.
Yep. And the I listen to the radio in the morning. I always listen to the weather forecast. They always talk about like how many feet of snow like the Sierra Nevadas are getting. They
Mhm,
get a ridiculous amount of snow.
mhm,
And from what I understand about climate change, it's actually less snow in some areas than there used to be, but some areas actually get more. Can you
mhm.
talk at all about how climate change might be affecting uh, what you're seeing as far as rain and snow?
Um, I'm not an expert in this, and by expert, I mean I haven't really looked into
Right.
the
You're
literature.
not a climate scientist, like in
No,
that
but
respect.
I do remember some things. I think in a warmer climate, they're expecting more events where it'll rain instead of snow. So perhaps the same amount of water, or maybe even more, can fall out, but it'll come as rain. And so it'll still snow at high elevations, but maybe then there'll be additional events that it's rain falling on top of already like pre-existing snowpack or something, and that's really bad because it could cause early onset flooding or
Hmm.
melting of the snow, and so there's risks to water storage and flooding, but yeah, so it's mostly the type of precipitation might change. um, and I'm trying to remember all my papers right now, but I think that's as far as I am willing to go with that
Okay.
question.
Yeah. I'll also some situated knowledge for upstate New York. Of course, we have, the Great Lakes, and so we have lake effect snow. And
Yes.
so you don't have a snowstorm, you just have 1 foot of lake effect. Uh, in fact, I
Yeah.
think every
And
time I go to Syracuse, it snows. But
mhm. Yeah, those Finger Lakes, they're crazy. Yeah, they just enhance everything. And then I'm from Chicago, so we also have lake effect snow from the Lake Michigan. It just goes the other way. I think where you guys are, it's probably going east, and for
yep.
us, it goes west. But yeah, all the lakes, and if it's cold, I think they have lake effect snow um, in Asia, maybe
Hmm.
Japan. It might. Well, I guess it's not a lake. It's probably the sea.
Yep.
So sea effect, and then in like Utah and all these other places where there's water.
Hmm. Yep. So what is actually your job going to be? You're a research scientist and you're looking at that's that level of cloud transition for snow. I mean, so is what else are you going to be? Is that it? The modeling for
No,
that?
um, there's all sorts of things. I
Hmm.
haven't. We haven't discussed, me and my science advisor and my other supervisor, exactly what I'm doing, but some of the ideas I guess we're going around are um, looking at that snow level, so transition between rain and snow, and understanding that better. And particularly, I want to use. I'm going to start getting into some jargon. Um, I want to use or test to see how many, or if you use different kinds of uh, packages that describe the uh, the formation of ice crystals and rain and all these other particles in the cloud that are a little bit
Hmm.
more sophisticated. So maybe instead of treating all ice as like a sphere, they actually show you the habit or the shape. So maybe they're like little dendrites, so the pretty little
Hmm.
snowflake group, or they're needles or something else. And then how does having a more detailed description of these snowflakes or ice crystals, how does that impact our prediction of the line? So there's that. I'm also really interested in so I'm from Cicero, Illinois, and we get a lot of basement flooding in the town. So when I was there, or from what I remember, we had maybe like 3 times that it flooded, and I want to learn more about those events. So figuring out what's happening. Like, is this precipitation really extreme, or is it just normal? Like, why do we get so much basement flooding? Um, and so, from the atmospheric component, there are people in Chicago, in the University of Illinois in Chicago, who are studying the civil engineering component, but I want to look at the atmospheric component. And then another idea is my family is from Mexico, the southwest, the state of Guerrero, and they live in a very tiny little town in the mountains. And so I want to understand the precipitation variability there. So how has it changed over time? How does it change within the
Mhm.
season? How does it change within the day? Is there a peak in at a certain time of day, and does that peak change throughout the season? Has that peak changed throughout decades? Because my family are all farmers there, and so they rely on the water from the sky to determine they're going to get a good crop that year. So it's super important.
So I have two sump pumps myself in my basement, as you know, where I'm streaming from now. So
Yes.
our neighborhood is known for flooding itself. That's mainly because they built the neighborhood on a swamp and through
Hmm.
an underground river, basically. So it has a
It.
lot to do with the rain for sure, and soil permeability and things like that. Um,
Mhm.
and Yeah, it's always a fight. It's like
Yeah,
whenever it rains in our neighborhood, everyone like kind of like, hey, how do you do? How do you do? Yeah.
yeah. It's really crazy, and I remember just it's it's one thing of like, oh, your basement is flooded and you have to maybe like we had to cut out the drywall and put new drywall in or replace all the things because everything got messed up. But it's also, so there's that component, but then there's the other component of health and inequality. So the community where I'm from is primarily Hispanic, and there's a lot of people that maybe are undocumented, and so I guess I would say they're in the shadows. And so if they want to live somewhere, they might live in the basement, and just to be cheaper. And if it gets flooded, what do you do? It's not like you can go anywhere else. Or
Hmm.
I know where our basement flooded, and if you don't take care of it quickly enough, you get mold. So if you're just
Yep.
living in an area with mold, then that affects your health. And maybe you just can't afford to fix it, or you can't afford a sump pump. Like my family couldn't afford one for a long time, and then eventually they invested in it because it kept happening. But not everyone has that money. So those additional layers of
Hmm.
problems.
Right. And that kind of brings us into our discussion we'll have about equity and inclusion um, within science in general, but specifically, I think you want to talk about within your field. Um, what did you want to talk about in particular? Did you have some insights? I know what I like to talk about is, you know, with my own students and
Mhm.
as teachers, and I know there's other scientists in chat. Um, what can we do to make it better and more inclusive? What do you think would have helped you or would help the youth of today going that might be in even in kindergarten,
Yeah.
going up? Uh,
I think so. I don't have anything planned, but yeah, that's a great question. I guess I would say there's different levels, obviously. But for one, just as a child, um, I was not exposed to science as a career. I didn't know that you could be an atmospheric scientist to say like, um, and the only thing I knew about a career in weather was to be a broadcaster. Um,
mhm,
and that's an awesome job. But that was the only thing that I thought about. So I didn't decide until maybe the the second semester of my undergrad to major in atmospheric science because I didn't even know it existed. Um, and so then I remember wanting to be a broadcast meteorologist and using my bilingual abilities to then translate the weather in Spanish. But then the more I learned about other opportunities, like, oh, you can do research, you could do field work, you could be a professor, or do whatever. There's so many things you could do. So I did not know. And my parents didn't know. And so
mhm.
it's hard to encourage someone to pursue something, or to even, yeah, just encourage or show them something like, oh, here's a toy, or here's a book. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, just knowing that you could do that was the
And
key.
I think there's a lot of, and this is where having good relationships with students and even not even necessarily students, but just kids in general. If you are a mentor, someone that there's institutionalized knowledge, right? Like if you come from a family that for generations have gone to college, you kind of know how the process works.
Mhm.
And even if you're within that community, whereas if you're not, you're at a severe disadvantage.
Yep.
Um, and that's where like for for like PhD, I don't do I have any PhDs in my family? I one of my grandparents might have gotten one in education. I don't know. We're all
Mhm.
educators in my family for the most part. So, but there's that institutionalized knowledge where, like, if you can impart some of that,
Yeah.
that's great. And this is where often you're even more disenfranchised because okay, you have a guidance counselor at your school, but there's one for 500 kids.
Mhm.
They're not going to be able to impart a lot into other than these huge meetings or an occasional email.
Yeah.
Um, and so it takes a community really to kind of do this.
Yeah.
So I hear you when you say that 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 was a struggle because you didn't have that.
Yeah, I didn't have that, and then, um, like, I didn't know how to write a essay for college
Hmm.
application, so
Right.
everything that I did to prepare for college was from my teachers in high school, so I'm super thankful for them and helping me get through those processes of applying to college and even thinking about college, because I didn't a lot of my friends have been thinking about it already. I already had visited or knew what schools and like, wait, were we supposed to do that? Oops. So I just like quickly figured it out. I'm like, oh, I'll just go where my friends go. Because I had no idea. And my parents weren't pushing it. So I was so very lucky. And then I guess so just introducing science as a career and a valuable and a commendable career, and it's super fun. But then I guess once you're in college, this is something that we've been talking, me and some colleagues, about. So there's something called code switching or identity shifting, um,
Hmm.
where you I guess as a person of color, so I am Mexican American, but maybe you're black or you're Asian or something else, a Native American, um, that's not part of the that didn't help make the the culture of science, basically. Um, and you're coming in to this area or this environment that already has these norms and these weird, or not even weird,
Yeah.
these just rules that you don't like they're not written down anywhere, you just kind of have to
Yeah.
figure them out. And you're coming in as your own person and your own authentic person, but then eventually maybe they're like, well, you need to be a little bit more professional, or you need to not be so loud, or your hair is a little bit unprofessional, or your outfits need to be more professional. And so all these things are just you have to, some people might have to change the way they speak, or change the way they behave, or wear clothes or wear their hair or do anything. And so then
Hmm.
you're switching your behaviors and your actions, you're adjusting them so that you feel like you can belong here. um, so that's a big thing for us right now, is trying to figure out how can we change the science culture so that anyone can come in and be as authentic as they want to be, and just come, like just come in as much of whatever you are, and be there's a book coming out called Ratchetdemic, and so Ratchet is I don't want to like describe it because it's not a word for me, and so, or it's
It doesn't
not.
describe you. You're not
Yeah,
ratchet.
well, I don't know, but it's not part of my culture, I guess. So I can't describe the word per se. Y'all can do your own homework. But basically, the author of the book, I forget his name, but be as ratchet as you are academic. So come as both, and so just not making our students conform, I guess, to some norm of what science is supposed to be. Because what does that mean? like some white men in the 1800s putting all this stuff together and then being like, yeah, we're scientists. And so then for a while, maybe they didn't let any women in. And then the women came in. It's like, well, you have to belong here. You need to blend in. So it's not, we don't, I
Like,
guess the
how are
future,
you going to
how,
do science? You can't wear pants. You
yeah,
know, it's like, what?
you're distracting with your ankles. And like, no, okay, let's just come here and do the best science we can. And it's just um, letting people be more authentic and embrace their culture, because then you, if you come in and you start maybe wanting or needing to assimilate to the majority of the culture or the cultural norms, um, you might end up starting to think like everyone else, and that's not, it's not
Mhm.
necessarily a good thing. We want we want to be critical of each other and we want to have all these new bold ideas. So these are just thoughts. We're trying to put something together on this.
I mean, you're hitting right here. Or I'm hearing
Yeah,
you because I think our school. I mean, dress codes in schools are like some of the most ridiculous things. Like, if you've gone to private schools are ridiculous too. Um, you know, they're like the most ridiculous things in the world. It's like, yeah, you can't wear a hat. Well, why the hell not?
yeah,
You know, just
can't
because
wear that.
someone in the 1800s said you shouldn't wear hats inside because it's
Yeah,
disrespectful. It's kind of like, you know, I get it. I mean, in the military, it's the same way, but the military is the military.
yeah,
But
that's a different
that's a
entity.
different entity. I'm like, this isn't the military. It's a public
One
school.
at a time. So
It's
yeah,
like,
like shoulders. This is, would I be able to show up to school like this? Maybe I remember when I was I guess being trained as a scientist, I do remember being recommended like, oh, you should maybe have a really nice sweater in your office as an intern. In case maybe there's a big important meeting and you just want to like look a little bit more professional and put a sweater on. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I did that, but I never questioned why. Um,
you have the
why am I?
sweater because labs get really cold.
Well, that too.
That's the
That is
reason why
a
you
fact.
have the
That is a
sweater.
fact that they're cold. But that wasn't it. It's something else, something more insidious, I guess. But that, or like, oh, scientists shouldn't wear piercings or have piercings, or your hair shouldn't be blue, or like you shouldn't have an awesome tattoo or something.
Right.
Like,
No,
why not? Um, it's
no, get
yeah, so
over it. Yeah, it's like,
yeah. I'm
I have a dress
this.
coat. I'll admit I have a dress coat in my closet at school, but it is mainly where it gets cold and I have a t-shirt, you know, like, so sometimes in the summer you're like boiling hot, then all of a sudden like the AC
Mhm.
clicks on and you're freezing. Like, run back there, get my sport coat, t-shirt and Vans. There's the
Yeah,
style.
you gotta be prepared. You gotta be ready for anything. But yeah, like when I would go to scientific conferences, I remember as an undergrad, I would have like a skirt or some like dress pants, heels, or dress shoes, a blazer, like all decked out. And I'm like, for what though? I guess to make a good impression. But like, uh, okay, I don't understand, because it's not like I could afford these things. I can't afford to get a new wardrobe just to go to a conference for a couple days. And wearing heels at a conference or any like dress shoes, that's painful. You're walking miles back and forth, sometimes running, trying to get to the next session. So at some point, I was like, you know what, this is stupid. I want to be comfortable because I'm trying to focus on the science here.
Some people
So
want an excuse to shop though. I will
true.
add that
I
it's
do need
odd
like.
for science people and engineers to criticize dress because I don't know if I talked about this on stream like Friday or something. I don't even remember. But think of like Steve Jobs and Albert Einstein, right? They wore the same clothes every day or the same style. Goes why? Because you can only make so many decisions within your day, and clothes shouldn't be one of them.
No,
And
I do
so
that
you have
in
the same outfit every day. Problem
yeah.
solved. And bathing is overrated.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Right?
Be hygienic.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah,
Volcano
just
Doc says, I wore the same Dansko wedges all of AUG 19, and they were more comfortable than my sneakers. And I ended up walking like 4 miles one day because the bark went out.
yeah. And so basically just wear whatever feels comfortable. Um and obviously there's I guess this whole sense of being professional. And I'm not going to really show up in a bathing suit or anything to like a conference because that's kind of odd. But I don't want to wear something if it's not comfortable, and I want to be comfortable so I can focus. Um, so yeah, those are some thoughts.
And I loved like in school, public schools, your high school education, you couldn't wear hoodies or hats. Why? Because we need to see who you are. And guess what? Now everyone's wearing a little dang mask, and you can't tell who
Oh
anybody is. I had a girl in class
yeah,
today. She had her hood up and her mask on. I'm like, I had no clue who she was. She was just like hunched over at her desk. I'm like, so and so. She's like, that's not my name. I'm like,
yikes.
I have no clue who you are. I'm like, what?
Yeah, so maybe because of COVID, the rules will start being a little bit more flexible.
I think so.
Everyone's in their
Because
home, people are in their slippers. Just
my one rule is you do have to be dressed for class.
yes,
I have had few issues with boys not having shirts on, and it's like,
yeah,
all right, come on now, get
just put
at
it on.
least a shirt on. No one wants to see you. Get out of bed, sit up.
Yeah, just get ready for the day.
We got to have a
Um,
line somewhere, right? It is not part of your culture to go shirtless. And I know that because I know your family. It's one of the benefits of a small school. I know all the families now, or at least most
Ooh,
of them.
that's good. Like, I'm gonna call your mom.
I could text your mom. That
Ooh,
didn't sound right. All right.
in real time.
I have done that before, though. So,
Yikes.
this point of the stream, I do have a game that we're going to play. All right.
Okay.
So, now you study rain. And
Hmm.
so I thought it'd be fun to ask you questions about Fat Joe and Little Wayne's song, Making It Rain.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar with that song.
I'm
Uh,
not.
okay, well, I'll put it in chat. I can't play it on the stream because they'll DMCA me and it's
Of
vulgar.
course.
Uh, no,
Yes.
actually, this is a fairly clean version of it. Um, but no looking at it until we're done.
Okay.
If you answer 2 out of 3 of these questions right, I will gift a sub to someone that is in chat. Um, so, are you ready to play?
Okay. Yes.
All right. See how much you know about this song. So, it was nominated for Best Rap Performance by a duo or group in the 50th Annual Grammy Awards. What was the chorus for the song Make It Rain? Was it A, got a handful of stacks, better grab an umbrella? I make it rain on them hoes. I make it rain. I make it rain. Or was it B, I make it rain like the light from my grill be shining. I make it rain, bitches be crying. Or was it C, watch out, I be raining these lyrics on ya. Make it rain, make it rain.
Oh my goodness. I want to say A.
A is right.
Oh my gosh.
Because not
Okay.
because back in 2007, it was all about throwing dollar bills at the hose, I guess.
Yes.
Um, it doesn't sound right, but that is the actual chorus, and this is why the Grammys are pretty much useless at this point. But this was back in 2007, so got a handful of stacks. Better grab an umbrella. I make it rain on them hoes. Terrible. Anyways, next question. You got that one right. All right, you got one. You got 2 more.
Yay.
Oh, I make it saying the lyrics out loud. Yeah, me, the old white guy singing the rap lyrics. This is what I do to make it cringe worthy.
Oh no.
So, which of the following was a critique of the song by Max on the Hip Hop Isn't Dead blog? After listening to all of Fat Joe's work chronologically, from the most recent to the oldest. Now, these are a little bit lengthy because they are blog entries, but
Mm-hmm.
so here are your choices. Did he say A, this colossal work of amazing rhymes and rhythms still seems fresh today and backstops an amazing hip hop career by Fat Joe? The cogent chorus by Lil Wayne is a perfect match for Joe's gangsta lyricism. There is a reason people still listen to this today, and that's because it is timeless. That was A.
Okay.
B. Wait, what version of the song is this? I hate it when rappers do this because I can't keep each remix with different guest vocalists straight. Hell, didn't Kanye do a version with Fat Joe? Regardless, each version is reminiscent of the last, yet has its own stylistic flair. Fat Joe spits some def lyrics, no cap, in verse 2. That was B.
Uh-huh.
Or did he say C? Lil Wayne pops back up to simply deliver a crappy chorus. One obsessed with the idea of making it rain on these hoes. While our host's three verses are gimmicky, lazy, and honestly offensive to the southern style of rap he's allegedly been inspired by here, as he spits more elementary crap in an effort to broaden his audience. Reed stretching his 15 minutes out even longer. This SHI word, letter sucks, man. And it sounds so much worse today. That was C.
Oh man. Um, I'm gonna go with C.
You are correct. How did you know? You're an expert on Make It Rain. You
Well,
you
for
are
one,
you
I
are an
don't think
expert.
no cap was being used back then.
Ah, very good. I put that in there just to see if you could pick up on that. That's
I'm
good.
somewhat with it. And then I forget about the first one, but the third one made more sense if you're a music critiquer. That makes sense because Fat Joe was from New York, and then I forget where Little John is from, but I think it's the South.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah, and where I said crap, that was actually the other word that I don't say on my family stream.
okay. What's
I
the
mean,
third question?
the third question. I mean, you got this already. You already got your 2 out of 3.
I want to
All
hear
right.
it.
So, who knew that Fat Joe knew him some science? Which scientific instrument does Fat Joe reference in verse 2? So, which one of these verses is in the actual song? Is it A, this cut coke crack and I control the team, couple bricks stacked on that triple beam? Or is it B, I be playing, I the seller, you the buyer, I mix you up like chems in my Erlenmeyer? Or was it C, crack crack my rhymes make you choke, they so dope, you got no ass dough, check my pocket, take out a microscope?
Oh man. Yikes. I don't think it's B. Um, I'm gonna roll the
Say
dice.
Erlenmeyer is a pretty specific.
Yeah. Oof. I'm gonna say A.
You are right. You are right. Because of course the producer of that album was a crack addict, so and they were all doing crack, I think. So the measuring out your crack and other drugs on your triple B balance, a very common thing for them to do, I guess. I don't know why you wouldn't buy a digital balance. You'd think it would be better than a triple beam, but
Maybe they're cheaper.
whatever.
I don't
They are cheaper. They're only $100. You could spend money on something else. But I always wondered that. But I always wanted to tell my students that there are some skills you can learn in my science class that could come in handy, even if you
know.
are a drug dealer.
No comment.
No comment there. you know. Yeah. Anyways, I did have fun making those other lyrics. I made those up myself. That was kind of good.
Well done.
Bayer and Erlenmeyer. That was my favorite rhyme right there. I'm gonna start my rap career now that I've written up a couple verses.
There. You just need a beat.
There you go, and I'll lay it out. Old school, Old school with Mr. Biter. I got to come up with a rap name though. I don't know what it would
Mhm,
be.
mhm.
It has to be something sciency though. I don't know. Anyway, so great job. You did it. You did it. You managed to go in and get 3 out of 3.
Awesome. It was all, context clues and some
Yep.
sort of logical reasoning that I used to answer those questions.
That's usually how it works. I usually try to put the one I put in is one was the Erlenmeyer. I knew that if
Yeah.
what rapper would
There's
know
no
Erlenmeyer?
there's
And
no way, unless they were a chemist before that. Like, I think Megan Thee Stallion, went is in college for health something, so she could drop some stuff in there.
yep, and the No Cap, and that just came out in the
Yeah.
last year, I think.
Some of these slang terms have been around for a while, but maybe they haven't reached the mainstream yet. Um, so now there's I'm sure the next words are already here. They're just not in the open yet. Haven't become as popular.
And that's
They're
one of
getting
the sad parts of not having kids in person in the classroom is I don't get to pick up on the slang as quickly as I used to be able to. Um,
Mhm.
because no one's talking. You're sitting there, as I
Oh no.
you're always, you think it's like a seance or something. Is anyone there? Can anyone
Yeah,
hear me? Speak.
that's tough because it's kind of like you're performing in a way.
In a way,
Uh,
it is.
yeah,
It's a lot like streaming, so I'm very good. That's what I do during the day, and it's what I do at night sometimes. So,
exactly. Yeah, I've given many seminars during COVID and or working from home, and it wasn't as fun because I like to walk around and point at things and look at people and look at their reactions. Like, oh man, they look confused. Let me explain this again. And I can't do that when everyone's little screen is gone or they're just a picture.
yep, just a picture. But we try to make it as fun as engaging as we can. Maybe I'll share some of my lyrics tomorrow with my students.
Hmm.
They would find that hilarious. Um,
They were fun.
as I hope everyone at is watching right now enjoyed them. And Insulatosaurus, congratulations on that sub. Use the smiley Erlenmeyer at your leisure. Put it out there. So that's what we like to see, little smiley faces. Um, and we are on the trail end of our stream here. So, Dr. Annareli, you're going to need to answer a few more questions, hopefully, with people in chat have questions for you about the atmosphere and rain and
Perfect.
snow. Say them. Get out there. Now, this is where it feels like I'm in class. I'm like, someone post a question.
I know I can
And then I
ask
have
my
wait time. You have to give wait time. I'm like,
oh the
all
silence.
right, right. You wait till like, and then it's always the one kid that can't stand it that always participates. And then you're like, I wanted someone else to talk, but okay.
Yeah, that's me. Um, uh, I guess a question I've been asked before is like, what? Well, common questions are what inspired you or what led you to be an atmospheric scientist or something.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
I don't have a cool story. A lot of my peers have like, oh, I saw a tornado when I was 3 and it was amazing. Or a lot of them actually, we should do a study of what percentage of atmospheric scientists slash meteorologists were inspired to be in that career by watching the movie Twister. Because
Oh,
that's a big
a good
deal.
question. Hey, welcome in, Professor Sauce Cat. You came in late, but not too late. We're still here. So was that inspiration, the movie Twister?
Yeah, that's just well, not for me, but that's an
Okay.
inspiration for many of my colleagues.
Okay.
So I should just send out a poll and see how many people. But I've figured something out where I think um when I was younger, I was afraid of thunder. It's too loud. And then my family, whenever it rained or there was thunder, they would just like turn up the music. And so then it was just like this bass, and just everything was so loud and it was too much. And so I started getting more anxiety about it. And then yeah, once I started learning about it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And now um thunder and rain is very relaxing because it's so nice. And just I know what's happening up there, so it's really nice.
But you don't know everything that's happening out there.
Nope.
Yep. So Professor Saucecat, please ask questions if you have them. You can ask them, and we'll get them answered hopefully. And so, was there a particular teacher that inspired you, or other adult that kind of really got you going?
I remember my 8th grade science teacher. I don't remember his name. Oh wait, I do remember his name. Oh, his name was Mr. Freeze. Um, because I think it was spelled like fries or something. But it was pronounced freeze. And he was super cool. And I got to learn all sorts of things. I got to dissect a pig and a frog, worm, and I did a whole report on Venus. So I think he really helped me with getting interested in all sorts of science
That's cool.
as in those 8th grade.
All right, Professor Saucecat asks, what are the current trendy research subjects in meteorology?
Ooh. Okay, let's see. The use of artificial intelligence or machine learning to do
Mm,
everything. Um, what else? Drones. Using drones maybe to put them into hurricanes or to thunderstorms or tornadoes to look into them, seeing if we can use the technology. So there's a lot of new technologies we're bringing in. Science stuff. I think there's been a lot of work on cloud seeding. So where
hmm
you put a certain seed or yeah, a seed, artificial kind of seed into clouds to make them produce more water, make them more efficient at like dumping out their water basically. So cloud seeding is coming back up. It used to be a big deal in the 60s and 70s. There was a lot of studies, and now it's coming back. And then let me think. Ooh, that was a good question. Um, I think that's as far as I'll go right now. But use of new technologies,
All right.
drones, AI.
Um, I will add just some self promo here. Uh, we had Jess and Solitosaurus who got this up earlier. She does some AI stuff. So and Professor Lazinski, who's a professor at UAlbany, works in a drone lab. So at
Mm.
UAlbany, they have this whole facility where you can practice flying drones and building drones. So there's a lot of stuff within that field where you can get into that, whether it's the AI side or it's flying drones. Someone's got to actually be able to fly it and build them. That
Ooh,
engineering path. So there's so much good stuff, places you can go.
I just remember, well, two things. One, U Albany has a great atmospheric science
Yes, they do.
department. Out
Yep.
to those professors. Um, and two, another thing that it's still within the field, but it's a different component of it. It incorporates social science. So basically, how are the warnings of like severe weather, tornadoes, getting to people, and how are the words that we use helping them determine the risk, and specifically in Spanish, because when you translate like a warning or a watch to Spanish, the words change obviously because it's different language, but also the meaning can change when you translate.
Mm-hmm.
So risk, for bilingual people, or communicating risk in Spanish is a pretty
Okay.
big now.
Yeah, emergency management and disaster management need help, right?
Mhm.
Because volcano doc, of course, you're involved on the volcano side, the earthquake side. Yeah, you know a lot more about that piece as far as uh all that. So yeah, that emergency management from East Coast to the West Coast and everywhere in between. Um, it's important. And yeah, there's so many interesting things. And shout out to U Albany. That's where I got my master's degrees. So,
Ooh, fun.
um, I looked at it for undergrad. No, too big. I wanted a small school. Um, so people saying hello to each other. I'll also give a shout out to right now. I put a link to the hack policy. That's a high school competition. It's a hackathon for science and environmental policy. I said I would give a shout out for that program. Someone I met through the Knowledge Fellowship wanted me to mention that. It's a high school student event coming up this weekend, I believe, is when it's going to start. So I'm gonna do my obligatory shout out for that. All right, any more questions? We got some good ones.
Hmm.
That was some good stuff. This is wait time again, right? This is the teacher method. You're supposed to. I forget what the actual time is. You're supposed to do for wait time. Oh, what is Dr. Miles's most wacky science story?
Wacky.
It's your
Um,
wacky science story.
I don't know. I don't know. What's your definition of wacky? Um,
Bizarre, weird. You know, something that'll make
weird.
us laugh. You know,
Oh, um,
or make us
hmm,
go, hmm.
I don't know. I am not a good judge of that, but I guess two things came to mind. Was one, I in 2018, I went to Argentina with a bunch of scientists for a field campaign. It was called Relámpago. And we went to study the severe storms there because it's insane. They have so many storms and they produce gargantuan hail. It's a
Wow.
new category of size because it's so big. It's a small cantaloupe size, basically. And it was interesting, I guess, being there because to them that's kind of normal.
Wait.
Um,
Cantaloupe size hail is normal.
because it
Uh,
just happens there all the time.
do they all have garages? I'm just
I was shocked when I saw the videos and I was like, those things are enormous. How has nobody gotten hurt? I'm sure they have. But it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, it was interesting to think about like some of the phenomena that
yeah,
occur in places to them is normal or just they
yeah.
didn't they just thought that's what how it was.
You just get used to
But
it,
it
I guess.
yeah, you get used to it, you live, you adapt to it. But then maybe you come in and you're like, "Wait, what? No, this is non-normal. This is extreme and we want to know about it." So those little things of just thinking about like what's normal or common to you may not be common in a different place. Um, and then
Wow.
another or were you going to say something?
I just said wow. I still can't get over that cantaloupe size hail. Like I saw
Big.
that once, I would be like, the insurance
Look it up.
industry in this country would be nuts.
Hard and hail, hailstones. There's pictures. It's just like this big thing. But yeah, might be able to hear
Yeah.
my kitten crying.
But
But
think of the amount of wind, right? Because the hail it falls and then it gets pushed back up. That's got to be really strong wind
mhm,
to push hail that size back up into like the column
mhm.
of the storm.
So we're still actively trying to learn more about it. That's why we went down there 2 years ago to collect all sorts of data. We were there for maybe 2 months, and maybe other sensors were there for even longer. But yeah, we were just collecting data, and so now all tons of teams are digging into it and trying to understand like what what is helping form these such strong storms. So yeah, I guess that's kind of cool. And then another maybe experience was as I've as I was being trained as a scientist and learning how to do programming. Um, and during my master's degree, there was a time where um, I was just like trying to code and do things, and I don't know what I was doing. And then I was really tired, and I now I've learned I need to go home and sleep and not keep working. And so I accidentally deleted all of my files, all of my scripts to run my simulate or not my simulations to analyze the code or the data. And so it was pretty horrible. But because of me and my situation, then they were able to realize, oh, those computers aren't actually backed up. We should back them up now. Like,
Ah,
you're welcome, everyone. I had to recreate all my files. Um,
your sleepless night led to everyone else having sleep because they didn't
it
have to
was
worry about getting backed up. Yep.
very scary and horrible. And I was like, you know what, whatever. And I think it was my birthday too. So I was like, I gotta get to dinner.
Oh.
I'll deal with this tomorrow. I hope something good comes out. But I was really proud because it took
Hmm.
me about a to redo them. And in the process, I found a bug in one of my codes. So I was like, oh, I made it better.
There you
Um,
go. Fail forward.
mhm,
Yep. As we talked about here, cloud needed. Yep. I have everything in the cloud, which someday Google will go bye bye, and then we will have nothing. It has happened in school a couple times where the Google system goes down.
mhm,
When Google crashes, and that's a I'm just a couple of times it's happened. I'm usually enough. I have enough stuff planned as a teacher that I can make stuff up on the fly.
mhm.
So I've been teaching long enough I can do that. But other teachers, it's like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? I'm a science teacher. I'm like, look at this cool experiment. You know,
Yeah, look
let
at
me
your
take
hand.
this stuff out of the closet. Let's play. You know, and just as long as my
Yeah.
document camera works, we're having fun. The handy things about being cool science people.
Mhm.
We have all the toys,
Yep.
all the fun toys. Ooh, well, everybody, thanks for being here. We are going to wrap things up, though. Speaking of sleep, um, you're
Like,
in Mountain Time, so you've got a little more time. Um, I am in East Coast time, and it's past my bedtime, is what it is. I have not been sleep. I've been not getting to sleep when I should, so um, which is my own problem. But um, I need to do better because there's nothing quite like a class full of well, it's not a class full of eighth graders, but half full maybe of eighth graders. The rest are online trying to hide from me.
yes,
Yep,
that's fun.
yep. And thank you so much for being here. And we are going to let's see. We got 6 people here. We'll see if we can raid somewhere and see what's on. I have no clue who's on right now that we can go ahead and raid, but we will see. Um, and thank you for being here. And have good luck with your job.
Thank you.
That's going to be fantastic. And congratulations on finishing the PhD. If you know of anybody or anyone in chat knows of anyone that wants to come on the show, April is pretty free still. So if you know someone else that wouldn't mind just coming in and chatting, because
Mhm.
you know we have a good time. I think just hanging out. Uh, then let me know and let them know. Get in my DMs as they
Yeah.
as they say. Get in my DMs and we can go from there. But thanks for being here. We are going to go to some Subnautica, I think. Well, Lantern Noir is still going, but he's probably finishing up, I think, if he's still on, because he was doing Dungeons and Dragons. But he's probably finishing up. I got a couple other teacher streamers I know of that are on as well. And next next week, next week's chat, because we do have someone coming in next week as well. We have Evangeline Rose, and we're going to talk about birds,
Ooh.
bird brains, and behavior. So someone asked me, they're like, "Oh, do you have anyone with birds yet?" I'm like, "No, surprisingly not. I have not had any people that do birds yet." So that was kind of surprising. So uh, I was kind of surprised at that. But we're gonna go. They rated us last time. We'll rate them this time. We can go over there. Uh, so let's find him. Lantern bar. There we go. Oh no, I didn't. So, and goodbye, everybody. See ya.
Lash out and slam, and as you push through the wood and leave a nice burned scratch.
I got a nat 1, and my strength is -1.
no!
So it's a 0.
And you can
Did you break
watch
your arm?
as that purple goo that it was bleeding now starts to stick to your hand
Oh no!
as you find yourself affixed
All right.
to the chair, which is really unfortunate because it goes next.
All right.